My next guest tonight is a Pulitzer Prize-winning expert on Russia and the editor of The New Yorker magazine. Please welcome to The Late Show, David Remnick. Good to see you again.
Great to see you.
New Yorker, it has been called the greatest magazine of all time.
And you're a New Yorker writer now.
I'm a New Yorker writer now, and you know it's also got a significant online presence, and you are the editor of the New Yorker, a major media figure, and I'm just curious, you're familiar with how free speech can be stifled around the world, and I'm curious, what was your first reaction when you heard that, based upon what Jimmy had said on Monday night, and what Brendan Carr said yesterday, to hear that Jimmy had been pulled off the air? What was your first reaction?
Well, the Brendan Carr line seemed like something out of Goodfellas. It really did. It was really ominous. We can do this the hard way or the easy way. And I have to tell you, from my own particular experience, I am no longer a kid reporter, but when I was living in Moscow in my late 20s into my early 30s, and things were getting better and better in the world in many different ways, not least in the Soviet Union. Free speech was arriving for the first time, not after 1,000 years of czars and 7 decades of the Communist Party and the Bolsheviks. Mikhail Gorbachev decided to modernize the country, and in order to modernize the country and to breathe new air into it, what was the first thing he did was begin with something called glasnost, the free expression. You started to see newspaper articles about the invasion of Afghanistan, about alcoholism in society, about corruption in government. And this was incredibly meaningful and valuable in what seemed to be the beginning of modernization for the first time in the Soviet Union. It was exhilarating. People took to this like fish take to the sea. It was oxygen. And to see what's happening in our country today, in my country, and one of the things that I prize most about it and love most and make my living at, and it is so dear to all of us, I think, to see this treated so cavalierly and so cynically and shut down, to watch us move backwards and to see it happening elsewhere in the world too, each in their own way, is to me a horrific tragedy.
When Putin took power, he consolidated his power around 99, and right after that started rolling up media. How would you compare to what's happening now to what Putin did at the time? Because there were 3 big networks in Russia at the time.
What happened under Gorbachev and then eventually under Yeltsin, and there were lots of flaws to the beginning of democracy or whatever it was called. But the most exhilarating thing, or one of them, was the sort of shoots of a free press. And there was real journalism on television and in newspapers and radio. It was exciting, it was productive, it was, the world was full of debate. Putin came to power on New Year's night, 1999, 2000. And you know who he went after first? This will sound a little familiar to you. Comedians.
I didn't know that.
There was a television show called Kukli, which means puppets. And it was a satirical, comic, political puppet show. And there was a character on Putin, big rubbery nose and, stern KGB eyes and the whole thing. And they went after him. And he hated it. And suddenly, that shut down. That was brought to heel. And then the entire network was shut down, and then. And now we've reached the point with the war in Ukraine, the invasion of Ukraine, that if there is in fact a Russian free press, their home base is in the Baltic states, in Holland, and all abroad.
Are there examples of countries that have been able to restore a free and independent press after having lost it?
Well, you could say that there are nations, for example, in Eastern Europe that had been democratic or semi-democratic, and then they came under communist rule, and strict censorship and then regained it, Czech Republic, for example. But we have to remember, and I think we often forget, how incredibly precious free expression is, how rare it is throughout the world, and how fragile it is. What we are seeing now is the government acting at the direction of the President of the United States to put pressure on, to manipulate, to silence, and even to shut down institutions of the free word. They haven't reached publishing houses quite yet, but stay tuned.
Well, speaking of which, just a few hours ago, this new cover of The New Yorker came out. It's a tiny hand in a big suit, holding a TV remote. Anything
Some
you want?
guy who watches TV, I guess.
Yes.
I think.
What would you like people to take from this?
So the artist is Barry Blitt, who is a kind of a cartoonist genius, really. Kind of like Thomas Nast for our generation. And it captures in one image Trump's peculiar obsession with the media, particularly television, I'd have to say. And the buttons say mute, pause, stop, stifle, silence, shun, sack, banish, and so on. And it's funny, haha, but it's also very real. This is what's going on.
Well, David.
It's good that I came out for the comedy portion
Exactly.
of the show.
It's been a cheerful conversation.
I like to bring a little life into every talk.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here. His documentary, The New Yorker at 100, will premiere on Netflix on December 5th. David Remnick, everybody. We'll be right back.